Do It All Dad, your podcast, dad-friendly entertainment for you and me. Controlling our kids through comedy can make our kids great again. And this is episode 35. Purge this apple, I don't care. This is MJ defending LeBron James. LeBron does plenty of good for the community. I refused to accept scale for making a cameo in Barbershop 1 and 2. MJ defending LeBron James. LeBron does plenty of good for the community, outside of refusing to cut his ties to Obama, who buried his head in sand traps while his Sweet Home Chicago absolved live streaming torture on Facebook. MJ defending LeBron James. LeBron does plenty of good for the community, outside of becoming the mope, malign face for race identity politics in the modern NBA era. MJ defending LeBron James. LeBron does plenty of good for the community. At the same time, LeBron James is still no threat to my legacy unless the big one takes out Golden State for good. MJ defending LeBron James. LeBron does plenty of good for the community. Then again, he supports Black Lives Matter, a terrorist organization last time I checked. He also supports the contract ordering goon killer Hillary Hammer Time Cankles. At the same time, he also supports the Iran empowering Obama on top of the ex-crack king of New York, Jay-Z. Plus, there's no denying LeBron is the king of the persecution complex and would never work for free. And in President Trump's defense, would you pay to hear LeBron speak? Hey now. MJ defending LeBron James. LeBron does plenty of good for the community. Meanwhile, his boy, the so-called great biracial hope, delivered less empowered good for urban black neighborhoods than gastropubs pushing Michelle's arugula grilled cheese sandwiches. LeBron does plenty of good for the black community. He's smoking whatever Robin is for thinking he's the king of New York. Then again, nobody's perfect. Besides my NBA Finals records compared to LeBron, obviously. MJ defending LeBron James. LeBron does plenty of good for the black community. And for Obama defenders in La La Land, we need all the non-racist through association street cred they can jack to feel smug superior over ahi tuna pizza lunches at Spago. MJ defending LeBron James. LeBron does plenty of good for the community, outside of refusing to recognize the residual impact of Jay-Z's prime crack-selling years. It's not like he had a daughter to feed like Big Papa either. MJ defending LeBron James. LeBron does plenty of good for the community. You're still more likely to get jumped for sporting Air Jordans. MJ defending LeBron James. LeBron does plenty good for the community. Did you say LeBron is on Ali's level now? Excuse me while my extended laughter clears my throat. Also, LeBron's scholarships for kids used to be a secret. Whatever makes LeBron feel better about endorsing a two-time loser like Hillary Hammer Time Cankles. On an end note, 5 million space bucks, the king becomes the king of second-guessing himself this season in Rapewood, thinking, I'll show Trump how smart my play calling is over the mongoloid point guard I won't defer to because I won't lose my cool. Not. Does that piece make me a LeBron hater? No. I don't like his divisive rhetoric, and I think it's excessively offensive to refer to all of the Ohio Cavalier faithful as uneducated for voting for Donald Trump. As far as I'm concerned, he's a controlled pawn by Obama and Jay-Z. And Jay-Z, last time I checked, had a conversation with Meek Mill to dissuade him from discussing meaningful prison reform in the White House. So I question your true uh, message as far as what right side of history you want to be on, because we do need to change drug laws in this country. They are too severe. I remember when I was pulled over heading up to Ithaca, where I went to college, and I wasn't smoking weed, but I had weed in the car, and they smelled it, and they found it, and ended up going to court. My father's, who was my godfather's best friend from the Bronx when I was a kid, was the head of the Office of Special Narcotics. He made a phone call. I got a ticket that my dad paid for, so I am a total beneficiary of white privilege. And there was, in that instance, and I remember there was a young black kid that was being also charged for marijuana possession, and I remember his sentence being more severe. Pretty sure he spent some time in jail, but I don't know the exact result of his case. However, I do remember, like it was yesterday, this female judge looking at me saying, "Hope you realize how lucky you are." And I do judge. And so I'm not, so knowing that we have these drug laws that prosecute, especially, people of color for marijuana is complete insanity. But, Meek Mill wants to discuss meaningful prison reform. And what I mean by that is, creating job training opportunities, trade schools within the prisons, so people don't come back and don't resort to drug dealing to feed their daughters. And I just don't understand why you'd be against that. Because if you're against that, that means that you're against black empowerment. And that means that you're pushing for more dependence, whether it be on the government or on drugs. And I don't understand. So I would love it if LeBron could enlighten me. And also my major issue with LeBron, the king of the persecution complex, is that he's got major balls calling himself the king of New York. Because when I grew up during the heyday of the Knicks, when we were actually competitive and exhilarating to watch because it was just pure unbridled hustle, and you had these CBA rejects like Anthony Mason and John Starks that had huge chips on their shoulder, and they competed at a very high level against the Bulls, in their prime, against Scotty and MJ, and those were wars that we had with them, Millennium Musketeers, absolute wars. And we were never blown out either. We were always competitive, but MJ, he's the ultimate closer. He would average like 60 points a game against us. He would alwaise rise to the challenge on the biggest stage ever, that being Madison Square Garden, of course. And LeBron had a chance to play for New York after he made the initial decision, and he blew it! So, can't be the king of New York unless you win here, bud. So, that's just the way it is. Now, this past week, the character from Facts of Life, Miss Garrett, passed away. And for all of you Gen Xers out there, we could all relate to the fact that we regret blowing off homework for such an extended period of time to watch the Facts of Life. If we all remember, it was Different Strokes, Facts of Life. Now, I'm a writer, I'm a comedian. I spend a lot of time being introspective and reflecting on my past, thinking what I could have done differently. So perhaps there are other Gen Xers that think, you know what, it's not a big deal that I blew off my homework because I was really smart anyway, and I still got a great score on my SAT, unlike you, Michael, who had to take the SAT on time, but it still didn't make much of a difference, knowing that by the time you were done, we were declaring our major sophomore year in college. However, with the character playing Miss Garrett just passing, I decided to put together a piece here called Gen X Facts of Life that I wanted to share with you. I'm trying to make this podcast more conversational and not just pure monologue to show off new jokes of mine. So here we go. Facts of Life. The Facts of Life represents our age of innocence. I'm talking to you, Gen Xers. Before 9/11 happened. Before 9/11 happened, AIDS became the most dreaded four-letter word in the English language. and before Obama turned the internet into the PC police. Free at last, my ass. Facts of Life represents our age of innocence. Before W exploited post 9/11 fear for all it was worth to Halliburton and Jowl Jiggly Cheney. Facts of Life represents our age of innocence. Before we learned Hollywood killed Corey Haim, empowered Harvey Here Comes Weinstein, and played dumb over Cosby's 4 decades worth of pill-induced rape. Facts of Life represents our age of innocence, when the term white privilege hadn't gone viral yet, because the internet wasn't born yet, nor the nutless trolls it proliferated. Imagine the situation otherwise. Sarah Jiang would be a blogger for Tiger Beat instead. Facts of Life represents our age of innocence. Before AIDS, 9/11, Barry Bonds, bobblehead doll phase. Facts of Life represents our age of innocence. This was before 9/11, pill parties going viral, Reagan downplaying AIDS as a mere offshoot of asshole shredding sex. Facts of Life made me become ordinary because I blew off my homework for her religiously. The sad part is that I spent more FaceTime with Miss Garrett than with both my grandmas and my tweens, and never became any wiser for it. So we're going to get to some jokes now, people. So this is a father in public with 3 kids without mommy back east. Normally, a father in public with 3 kids without mommy back east. Normally, this is my reality. Normally is greeted with, "Who do you think you are playing Mr. Mom with such natural, fuss-free grace? You knock-kneed, unemployable putz." This is version number 2. Father in public with 3 kids without mommy back east. Normally is greeted with, "Who do you think you are playing Mr. Mom with such prideful, natural, nurturing ease? Motherfucker." True happiness. Daughter listens to the opening of your Do It All Dad Year podcast with headphones on before blurting out an emphatic Marv Albert "yes" after a punchline highlighting mom's non-appreciation of daddy. Former President Barack Obama turned 57 this past weekend. He never thought the FBI-financed, FISA-supported Russian collusion story warranted a Trump impeachment wish when he turned 56. It's a great joke, I know. Resist this. Kathleen Turner was trending on Twitter a couple of days ago. So I decided to share this with the universe. It's based on a true story. In fact, I did meet a disheveled Kathleen Turner once with sweatpants on at a wine shop in the Village, when I was living in Brooklyn back then. She was buying and selling ads for the Village Voice. She was buying a jug of generic vodka that just said vodka on it, and her husky voice sounded like full-blown AIDS. But she's the beacon of angelic sophistication. From what I recall, she was trending because she was, bashing Trump, obviously. So yeah, folks, I did sell print ads and digital ads for the Village Voice. The economy was awful back then. I got paid nothing. It was like 35 grand. I remember the VP of sales, this real slimy scumbag. I think his name was Michael Cohen. I don't remember, but it might as well be. And he goes, "Why would you want to work here?" At that point, my girlfriend, now wife at the time, was just, was not dealing well with me being out of work. And just before my TV writing break, I'm pretty sure. Oh, and at that point, I did become a recommended writer on TVWriter.com after I wrote a 30 Rock script called The Kings of Comedy. So I had some writing mojo in my favor. I was aware of the fact that Norman Mailer, the great Norman Mailer, famous American writer, novelist, journalist, an occasional wife lunger, stabber. Norman Mailer said that Brooklyn is the most secure place for a Jew to live. I thought that was funny. And humor was not his hallmark. He also wrote very poetically about boxing. He was Boys of Ali. A man of letters. And you definitely have to appreciate his fierce intellect and commitment to writing. That's for damn sure. Harvard grad. He had a place in Provincetown where he would write for his winter retreats, and I always loved that image. Because I was reading this book about writing, and he talks about like the blustery, dramatic, wind and being all out there by himself. And he would do that deliberately because he realized that there weren't the typical New York City distractions of all the parties and drinking, and he went there to get the work done, which I think is really cool. I've always loved that image of him in splendid isolation, working on his novels, just cranking it out and doing what he's got to do, willing his creations into reality. I think it's really awesome. So that's Norman Mailer, and so the Village Voice. I remember trying to sell ads to Village Voice, and then the typical, in sales, you always deal with obstacles when you're doing sales. Like when you're headhunting, you talk about how to overcome certain obstacles, like the HR push, or you're not on the vendors list. In this case, my obstacle was, so do you guys still sell sex ads in the back? And I said, yes. I think you're referring to the she-mail ads in the back, but now they're not as bigger. In fact, they've been reduced more to the size of like she-mail stamps. And then, on occasion, so now you no longer see like the bottom half. And then on occasion, I'd be in the West Village and the wine shop guy or the tiki bar manager would say to me, but the bottom was my favorite part. So that was my experience at the Village Voice. Got fired from that job because I didn't sell enough ads. Although I did sell a great sponsorship for this fancy sushi restaurant in Tribeca for the Obie Awards, which is an award special that they did for off-Broadway theater, which was pretty cool. And then there was also this music festival that I had sold a wing sponsorship for, and that was nice. Then again, I felt very cheapened afterwards when I remember my boss complaining about the wing guy. He was Atomic Wings, and he was complaining about how it's like, I still don't know how I was able to justify, giving away free wings, and I don't really know how this translated into actual money for my business, and it was so that was that. I do have a pretty sexualized story to share about that music festival, but I think it's gonna have to wait for another time, folks, because we have too many jokes here to get to that are a tad more relevant to the times we live in, and right now we are in the midst of the great internet censorship purge, which is a little bit more important than a kinky sex story of yesteryear. So let's keep this joke monologue. Let's keep applying forward in that. So I'm at a juice bar in Manhattan. Only in Manhattan you pay $10 for a juice drink, minus the hemp powder, which is like totally disgusting. By the way, this is a do-it-all dad your tip. Hemp powder is Indigo Girls, Before Me Naked, gross. So that's one option you have for hemp powder. Usually it's mixed with peas. But you could also get protein powder with flax seeds, and that's like boner deflating. Indigo Girls, Before Me Naked, gross. So there are a bunch of black people working there, and I like to get a feel for the black community's real feeling for the Obamas, because as far as I'm concerned, the Obamas did nothing for the black community. They did everything in their power to actually prove that they were these elitists that were above actually trying to help them and empower them. So, and right now, unemployment is at an all-time low for African Americans. That did not happen on Obama's watch. And I've said it once, I'll say it again, that also President Trump dedicated like the first 12 minutes of his speech when he was being inaugurated to revitalizing our urban cities and making that a number one priority, and that's undeniable. And also, listen, like every New Yorker, gets along with African Americans. Like that's just the way it is. I mean, I remember when I took a train down to New Orleans for Mardi Gras, and in college, And I remember like taking these trains to pass by like the swamp country, and it felt as if that black community was just like frozen in time. We're talking like frozen in time in terms of like Civil War, like frozen in time. And it's just a different feel in New York City or a place like Philadelphia. Those brothers are, they don't feel like stuck in the past. They don't feel like, modern, participator contributors, to society. Yeah. So I'm not saying that African Americans aren't the same way down south, but, that weighty racist, path of yesteryear just is very palpable, and it permeates everywhere you go. So it's just a totally different feel altogether. So anyway, so back to me making fun of the Obamas whenever I'm in Manhattan, and me being willing to take a mini chance and see if I'm in the right as much as I think. So here we go. This is me at the Juice Bar in Manhattan. All right, guys. So this is Thanksgiving at the Obamas this year. Malaya, you barely touch your tofurkey. And this is Malaya addressing her dad. Dad, didn't you know about Harvey Weinstein? And then Obama says, Michelle was on the set with you, Malaya. And that fat Jew couldn't pin down Michelle if he tried. I love that joke. I don't know if you guys are aware of this or not, but Harvey Weinstein's wife finally filed for divorce and left Harvey Hair Clubs Weinstein so she could focus more on her lifetime battle with amnesia. So this is me at the Juice Bar again in Manhattan. Does Michelle Obama get an override on those kale chips? Did she strong-arm you into handing over her cut or what? Anyone complaining about Stephen Miller can move to Germany for a pleasant change of scenery before no-go zones swallow up the country whole? In Germany, they accept all immigrants, regardless of cultural loud desire to say no to child marriage. Fake feminists, unite! Again, why so-called feminists would rally behind someone like Linda Sarsour at these marches on Washington is beyond me. Knowing that this is a woman who promotes genital mutilation. She was born in either Brooklyn or Queens. She was not born in Palestine. And, I mean, she's a divisive, feckless C-word to the nth degree. That's undeniable. And also, for all of you Colin Kaepernick supporters, there is a picture on the internet of them together. So you got Fake News Fro. It's my affectionate warm nickname for Colin Kaepernick. Because I've never seen a biracial afro that large before. When Slash with Guns N' Roses, his attempt at it was a total flop. So he's in a picture with him and Linda Sarsour, and they're looking very happy together. Extreme grins. And I'm thinking to myself, Colin, you do realize that's an awful look, knowing that this is a woman who promotes genital mutilation according to Sharia law. So basically, Colin, at this point, you might as well be sporting a mutilated clit on your fro, bro. That came together beautifully. I should really stop yelling into my podcast. Getting the flu from my mother actually improved my delivery. I'm sure she'd love to hear that. So this is a conversation with my daughter. Daddy, why does Sarah Jiang, she's the new reporter, I'm pretty sure she's Chinese American, but she went to Harvard. She's now on the editorial board for the New York Times, and all of her past posts on Twitter describe white people as gremlins and white people this, white people that. So, not a fan of the white Caucasian race. So, my daughter, and I explained this to my daughter. So, my daughter says, and obviously it's a blatant case of reverse racism. No, he didn't, and the ridiculous double standards that the New York Times perpetuates. So here we go. Another reason not to respect the New York Times' integrity at all whatsoever. Here we go. So, daughter. Daddy, this is my daughter. Asked me, Daddy, why does Sarah Jiang hate white people so much? And this is me, the unemployed comedian / father of three. replying, because Zitface Zuck didn't jack the idea for Facebook from the Biff twins to assess her relationship status. Love that joke. It's my mom. Did you watch the CNN doc on Bobby Kennedy? And I say, I'm only watching CNN in my Clockwork Orange nightmares in LaGuardia Airport. Sarah Jeong's hiring by the New York Times reveals my tweet history bashing the feckless country of Hillary Hammertime Cankles won't score me a New York Times paperboy interview for 7 years straight. Hey now. This is me at the Greek diner with my kids. I say, does this jukebox work? And this is the gruff Greek manager. I suppose so. My reply, you inspire more confidence than Lindsay Lohan's own line of anti-aging face creams. This is an old friend of mine. He says, dude, you got to see the new Baron Cohen film. What is America? And I reply, what is America? Easy. It's 63 million It's easy. It's 63 million crybabies, like my limey father-in-law, who chose to wear his Man City shirt to our house on 4th of July this summer because he was with her. My daughter, Daddy, what's a private club? For either stuck-up Gentiles or fancy-pants Jews obsessed with exclusionary payback. Daddy, what's a private club? The aura of special exclusiveness. I was before talking about the Purge. The title of this podcast is Purge This Apple, I Don't Care. Because my podcast, I'm now going to be 35 episodes in, under the family and kids section. Still not on new and notable. Why? I have no idea. Because I know what my competition is, and they're not being brutally honest about the age we live in. They're not delivering my comedic goods, my poetic punch, and their voices suck and bore you to sleep. So I would just assume that my perpetual Obama bashing has not won me many friends over in Cupertino who don't want to see me succeed. And that's just a theory. You could call me a delusional, hack that's making excuses. That's an unemployable putz, but you're entitled to your opinion, and so am I. But this past week, Apple had banned InfoWars from their platform, purge all the content. Spotify followed, so did Facebook. And that's a very scary sign for freedom of speech. All Alex Jones has done is, who by the way is more viewers than CNN. And I agree, Michael Savage. All of his, listeners, can't be, crazy nut jobs. And in fact, the expression conspiracy theorist was created by the CIA to essentially shame anyone from questioning what, fake news or traditional media tells us, what is and what's not. And I have always called social media, the ultimate truth equalizer. It's the reason why, Trump was able to become president. And now it's very obvious, with the economy roaring, minority unemployment, being at an all-time low, more blacks supporting Trump than ever. So, because he's a gangster in the sense that he says what he believes, he fulfills his promises, and he cares, and they're picking up on that. So, as far as I'm concerned, the resistance, they are freaking out, and this is a sign of desperate souls who already control the mainstream media narrative, and they realize that this Trump is a Hitler narrative isn't working. The Russian collusion story with less legs than Lieutenant Dan obviously is dead in the water. So now they're like, okay, well, we're just going to kick off any person with influence who supports the president's agenda and who supports taking care of Americans first and taking care of immigrants who came here legally, and not just allowing any criminal, rapist, drug dealer into our country because we fear the branding of racist if we deny that reality otherwise, which is complete insanity. In San Francisco, my brother just went there recently. There's feces everywhere. It's like the most expensive city in America. So all these like progressive policies obviously haven't benefited the one area where it's supposed to represent the the ultimate utopian Shangri-La society, that Silicon Valley acts as if they've been responsible for creating, and that all of us in the rest of America need to emulate, which is like complete insanity and total ridiculousness. So here's some material right now talking about Facebook banning InfoWars for life and Apple. So I'm going to give my explanations, people. So here we go. Facebook banning InfoWars for life. Why they do this? Because as if Zuck has to blame their historic billion-dollar loss on InfoWar collusion, obviously. Apple's reason for banning the InfoWars podcast. They only do business with a fake news doctor who made a killing off demonizing the only black people there to protect and serve his brothers and sisters in the first place. Obviously, that is an homage to our men in blue. And thank God law and order is being restored again. Thank you, Donald Trump, for that. Apple's reason for banning InfoWars. Tim Cook prefers, this is one of my favorites, Apple's reason for banning InfoWars. Tim Cook prefers the wholesome, non-challenging establishment stylings of Brian Regan over Bill Hicks. There's a theory out there that Bill Hicks is, that Bill Hicks is the new, well, let me explain who Bill Hicks is, by the way. So Bill Hicks is the greatest stand-up comedian that most Americans never heard of, which drives me nuts. And he was very prolific. He used to be into drugs. He had this great bit about had a great time on drugs, never robbed anybody, never killed anybody. He's like, you never hear that narrative. He was all about, a lot of his material was very prophetic. He was very critical of the Bush administration, the war in Iraq. And he was really calling out bullshit, fake news, before, Trump became president. And, he was a poet comic, to the nth degree. A lot of people say, oh, he never made me laugh. He made me laugh. And I thought that he elevated, the art form, better than anyone. And definitely a more fearless performer, obviously than like a Jerry Seinfeld. Yet no one knew who he was because he was never on TV. But he became really big in England, so he pulled what I call like a Jimmy, because that's when like Jimmy really took off in there. Same thing for the late great Patrice O'Neill. So it kills me that a lot of these artistic heroes of mine were able to really find their voice and find an embraceable audience in England. Yet now you got people like Tommy Robinson who get thrown in jail for reporting on decades of these like they're Muslim, I'm sorry, they're not Christian grooming rape gangs, they're Muslim grooming rape gangs, and that's just the reality. And they were getting away with it forever, and there's a major trial. It's obviously a huge source of shame in England. And all he was doing was reporting on it, and they sent him to jail, and they put him in solitary confinement, and they put him in solitary confinement where all they fed him was like tuna, like a tin of tuna and like a little fruit. Obviously, I'm sure it wasn't that good a day. That's it. No visitors. Or maybe saw his lawyer for like, 5 minutes at a time. And there was this window area where they call the prisons, they're halal prisons because the majority of the population is Muslim. It's just the way it is. And they were throwing feces through this like window that led directly to his cell in solitary confinement, and he was there for 2 months, which is insanity. And obviously, we all know, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is the podcast that gets me banned or purged from Apple, and I don't care. And this is why, because obviously, this is what I've learned from, I can give two shits about Milo. I've made fun of him before. I know he bangs, or he has a black boyfriend, so I can't think that, he really hates black people. Meanwhile, from what I've read, he was in a bar like doing karaoke with some like neo-Nazi guy. So, and I think he's even like part Jewish. But if that's true, f you, Milo. And I also read your book, and it was a piece of shit, and your writing wasn't that good either. And I think he's definitely has an inflated sense of self-worth. That's for damn sure. So I don't. I'm an independent thinker. I don't side with Milo. I was just curious, but the book was garbage. Although I did like what he had to say about how basically being against the resistors is like the new punk rock, and how that's like. I mean, you tried to say, oh, that's like the cool. It's like the cool side to be on because it's anti-authority everything. At the same time, I also think funny's cool, and the right. Whether you're talking like your Hannitys or Mark Levins, they're a bunch of humorless putzes according to me. And I know they fight the good fight, but I question the real leanings. So like when Michael Savage goes after Hannity and Levin and those guys, I identify more with him because I question the fact that Michael Savage, and I know I've been critical of him, but the fact that he's banned from Fox News is just ridiculous. And I think it speaks to the fact that they don't like anyone pointing out their hypocrisies. And when I said to my wife, I'm like, listen, you have the only reason why I have any modicum of respect for Fox News is because they do the only major network that does promote the wins of the Trump administration that focus on the good. And I do like Lou Dobbs. I think he's a smart literate guy. And I don't find Dennis Miller that nauseating and annoying. I think it's pretty, courageous and ballsy, for, his stance these days, and for not, giving into, the Trump derangement syndrome hysteria. So I think that's very impressive. But so I'm going on this like complete tangent about Fox News right now, and so my point being is that Bill Hicks was a true auteur and was a truth bomb hurler of the umpty grade. And a lot of people say the theory is that Alex Jones is Bill Hicks, which I think is hilarious. And I also have an affection for Alex Jones because I definitely believe that Anthony Bourdain was not that was not suicide. I've talked about it before, and a lot of people, Joe Rogan went out of his way saying, "Oh, no, you're crazy, you're talking about." And I thought Joe Rogan was a little too quick to disparage that theory. I mean, I'm just going to throw out some facts right now. And I said when I was at the Tesla dealership yesterday, not to buy a car, I was just killing time with my son. But I said, "So do you think Anthony Bourdain killed himself?" Alex Jones says he's really good friends with Elon Musk. He goes, "No, I don't think so." And then I said, well, you do realize that before Bourdain was killed, he posted a tweet that said, "I was just on the receiving end of Hillary Clinton's operative's wrath, and it wasn't very much fun." He's very critical of Harvey Hairclumps Weinstein, his girlfriend. Look the clip up on YouTube. She outs Harvey Weinstein. She says, he raped me. He's raped a lot of other people. I mean, folks, this is, like the classier version of the Academy Awards. I'm talking con over here. I mean, this is not insanity, but this is pretty hardcore. And so there's that. Guy hadn't touched drugs in 40 years. Guy had the world by the balls. He was able to travel on CNN's dime. He was doing jiu-jitsu. He looked better than ever. Look it up on YouTube. Look it up on Google. He's this pigeon, Iggy Pop. Next with his top off, Anthony Bourdain. Iggy Pop looks like the druggy lost one, who hasn't had a hit since David Bowie gave a shit. David Bowie produced Lust for Life for him. A little inside baseball reference there. So, no, I don't think Anthony Bourdain killed himself. I think that he was going to out the global sex traffickers that Harvey Weinstein was obviously involved with. With Podesta brothers. I mean, that is the one. I am firmly convinced that Hollywood, the main reason why they have been resist this, resist that, the reason why they've gone out of their way to demonize Donald Trump is because they are freaking the F out about the dark, most harrowing truth, which is how everyone in that town enables and empowers people in power who are the lowest form of vermin in the world because they have been major, ultimate pedophiles that killed Corey Haim. And it just makes complete sense. And I had this old joke, where I'd say, I'm just waiting for Obama to claim credit for birthing the Me Too movement because so many high-ranking, high-profile rapist scumbags were exposed under his watch. So it's not a coincidence, people. Also, look it up on YouTube. There's a picture of Joe Biden. Apparently, I call him Grope-a-Dope Biden. That's for you, Michael Savage. And he touches all these little girls inappropriately. I mean, anyone with a moral pulse would see it. Look it up. And there's one picture with Jeff Sessions where the Attorney General and Biden goes in to hug his granddaughter and Biden slaps his hand away because he knows. So I'm telling you, I believe the reason why you haven't seen major justice yet in terms of this deep state purge or why people aren't being arrested yet, for all the sedition, all the leaking, all the lying in front of Congress is because Sessions has been stacking up his case. And eventually he's going to bring down the hammer and he's going to bring it down hard. And in this country, we're going to see a conniption fit that we've never seen the likes of before. You think people are hysterical now? Just get your popcorn, as they say, because the best is yet to come. But here we go. Back to the purging. Again, total signifier of Silicon Valley losing all control. This is their desperate ploy to control the culture narrative and to try to sway votes towards anyone that's non-Trump, but it's not going to happen. Call me crazy. I don't care. I do believe Trump is God's candidate because there was every reason in the world for him not to win. Every reason. The media worked against him. Hillary got the questions in advance. And, you had some Russian bots, perform some anti-ads for Hillary. But, that wasn't the reason why. She lost. The real American people said, we don't want any more of Obama and Hillary policies and his divisive race identity politics. We don't want any more radical Islam acceleration into our country, and we don't feel safe, and Donald Trump can make us safer because that's what he said he's going to do, and we're going to give him a shot at it. And it's that simple. So, and we also like the idea that he had more experience than just being a community organizer. We're like, okay, the guy's worth many billions. I think he's in a position to actually cut down on some unnecessary regulations and actually get this economy going again. So, and apparently, according to Michael Savage, churches were packed to capacity during election year. So, if you're godless and you're an atheist and you're so evolved and you think I'm just full of it, I don't care. I'm probably not listening to the show anyway, because I do mention the Lord above throughout this podcast pretty consistently so far. And if you can't really get into God after having 3 kids, I don't know what's wrong with you. So your parents messed up real good. So here we go. Apple, Facebook, YouTube, and Spotify have removed all content by InfoWars because Obama needs a belated Hail Mary gift to give him hope for any semblance of cultural relevance again. Big Tech removes all content by InfoWars because Alex Jones isn't into porking black, Muslim, trans who blame Israel for the root of all evil. Big Tech removes all content by InfoWars Alex Jones because they're the hateful, intolerant, feckless cunts, not the other way around. Big Tech removes all content by InfoWars because they don't like social media as a truth equalizer to combat the rapidly declining influence of fake news that baby boomers are keeping in business, because baby boomer arrogance never dies. Big Tech removes all content by InfoWars Alex Jones because deep down they know Pizzagate is real, and their chances of impeaching Trump or controlling both houses is becoming shittier than Stephen Colbert being a respectable performance artist again. And hey, people, I loved his, White House Correspondents' annihilation of W The entire spiel about trusting his guts. I thought it was really funny and very fearless. But meanwhile, I now see pictures of him, happy-go-lucky with John Podesta, and that guy's evil personified. Look on the internet, and when you see some of the child pornography art that graces his wall, and tell me you're not questioning the Pizzagate theory after all. Why would Facebook ban the Alex Jones show on Facebook, but not Antifa data? Because Zitface Zuck tweeted Diamond and Silk like menaces to society. Nino Brown is a menace to society, Matilda. Diamond and Silk, they're more like De La Soul in comparison. Why would Facebook ban the Alex Jones show on Facebook, but not Antifa data? Because George Soros pays Antifa to get their hands dirty for them. Data. Why is Facebook so offended by Alex Jones? He points out Antifa for being fake news defenders against fascism, when in fact they're paid for, minimum wage, wannabe tough guy goons who vandalize Marine recruitment offices because she lost. Why would Facebook ban the Alex Jones show on Facebook, but not Antifa, or the New Age militant Black Panthers, or Jew demonizing Farrakhan? Because Jay-Z let Zitface Zuck rest his laptop on Beyonce's bum one time. Data. Why is Facebook so afraid of Alex Jones? Because he isn't afraid to advertise the fact that charges of Bourdain's alleged suicide are a bigger stretch than Hillary Hammertime Kankel's claims of half of her 30,000 deleted emails being yoga-related. Apple's reason for banning the InfoWars podcast, because they encourage diversity of thought as much as the DNC disavows dirty work ties to Antifa. Why is Zitface Zuck so anti-Trump data? Trump is a noble alpha dog who works for free, who fights for America's safety and prosperity. Zitface Zuck supports free speech anarchists like Antifa. Zoros is Zitface Zuck's emperor ruler from Return of the Jedi. Really. This is my wife. She calls me in the city. When I was in the city this week. Hi. I say, what's going on? Are the kids okay? Wife says, just checking in. I reply, this is my first time away in the city in 6 months. You couldn't be more codependent annoying if you tried. This is my wife earlier that morning. What time is your train leaving? My reply, I just told you I was leaving for the train, which now, based on your free will tampering, can't come fast enough. It's weird when older, connected Italian men comment on my baby boy's happiness in coffee shops as I swirl my boy in my arms like my remote air guitar appendage. Then again, Vito's mother could have tried to snub out his self-esteem too. Spoiled baby boomer talk. Mom says, can't Natalia look up to Samuel? Just once be sensitive to Natalia's working nights with dying floppy blue-faced babies for 12 hours straight, Mom. So 4 hours sleep isn't enough for a working mother 3. No offense. This is a conversation with my mom about her trying to push taking the kids to Long Island, to the beach instead of West Point. Mom, instead of West Point, this is my mom, instead of West Point, how would you feel if we took the kids to the beach in Long Island instead? My reply, haven't you seen your friends enough already? Then again, you think CNN is the best friend baby boomers never had. In-law aggravation. What's more intrusive, babe? Your parents bringing the dog with no muzzle on because it effing chewed through it already around the 3 kids? Or your dad putting my bowl of leftover fried rice on top of my comedy gold making laptop machine? My son plays dress up with a natural flair. He also pointed out at the New York Post once, he pointed at the New York Post with a smoking hot pic of J-Lo and A-Rod and said, I want to hit that. Either he'll be gay, folks, or very picky. Memo to Rosie O'Donnell. Broadway doesn't represent the heart, soul, or will of the American people any more than The View, Hollywood, or big tech in Silicon Valley does. You washed up, feckless, colossal cunts of the most blubbery, non-culturally relevant order. This is me at home in my office. Hey, babe, come to the office for a sec. Wife sighs. Wife says, it's so hot outside. I got a headache. I push Samuel in the stroller. My reply, you complain too much for a willing mother of 3. So, folks, I want to discuss my time at the Telsa Showroom yesterday. I said I was there, and this car sales guy says, this new model has autopilot. And my reply was, you didn't know I was a quarter Asian, did you? My height, comes from Yao Ming's side, actually. And then the Tesla car sales guy says, the car costs 52 grand. My response, but the carbon emission savings are priceless. How many rainforests will I save from buying it? Again, this is the car sales guy at the Telsa Showroom, emphasizing the fact that the car, that this model that has autopilot. My reply, does it come with an auto joint roller too? While I touch myself to internet porn? You can't get arrested for that while cruising in North Beach. Can you? This is me at the Telsa Showroom, car sales guy. Buyers' biggest concerns are safety and luxury. I reply, I hear Elon Musk broke up with his girlfriend because pitching a long-distance relationship from Mars is always a stretch. This is me at home last night, watching Wyatt Earp with my baby boy, Samuel. This is Wyatt Earp's dad. If a man can't be depended on to be steady, there's no use in keeping him around. Now I'm thinking to myself, I better start shooting off more resumes before mama kicks me out for good. This conversation with my mom yesterday. Ex-cons are getting jobs now. Why can't you get interviews again? I replied, God wants me to get second-class treatment as a stay-at-home dad, so I gain a deeper empathy for the plight of the Palestinian people. This is my dad. Nobody cares what you think about politics. My response, becoming a grandparent hasn't granted you with newfound wisdom in the self-esteem boosting department, obviously. This is my dad again. Nobody cares what you think about politics. My response, the American people feel the same way about CNN and MSNBC, Dad. Numbers don't lie, unlike the deep state traders they employ as so-called honorable pops. So, folks, I obviously didn't take my father's advice. So this is where I'm at. I met a guy in the city this week. I was in Manhattan. He made a career in marketing, working for a lot of the music labels. And his attitude was, listen, why wouldn't you be on Facebook? Why would you deny yourself the opportunity to reach all those eyeballs? You got billions of people. I said, because I don't support, there's such a practice. I think it's, blatantly anti-American. I think Zitface Zuckwood is a pawn of George Soros, who was a Nazi collaborator, who would round up Jews, which Joe Rogan denies, which makes me think that he's controlled too, in some capacity, despite his tough guy persona. Because when you got goons that can actually kill you, that's going to, change your tone real fast. And, I'm at this crossroads, people, where I got to provide for my family. Obviously, I want to make a living off of the podcast, off of talk radio. But, I'm now under the impression that, you have social media kicking someone off like Alex Jones. And, Alex Jones utters a lot of things that I do. I basically realized that people get kicked off Twitter if you say anything remotely negative about African Americans, like such as, then again, my LeBron James material, that didn't get me kicked off. But then again, I have no followers now because I started a new account, so I don't know if that plays a factor. But I also don't sense any sort of, I don't know if all of my logic in my jokes is a reason why, and there's no overt racial overtones. You can't have overt racial overtones. And Roseanne's a freaking idiot for doing that Planet of the Apes thing for Valerie Jarrett. I had stated before, just to clarify, she actually does have African American blood. I thought that she was just of pure Arabic descent, but then to blame it on Ambien, I don't know, it just sounds fishy. I appreciate her being fearless for a woman, but my daughter watched her roll a stand-up and she can care less. So I certainly don't think Roseanne is the end all to the be-all. That's for sure. And Milo, listen, the guy was caught, partying with a bunch of neo-Nazis. Or this one neo-Nazi leader doing karaoke. So, and he went after that woman for Ghostbusters too. And I agree. I don't find her funny either, but I think, him going after her, her grammar. I think he was in a Ebonics, dig. Apparently that was enough to get him kicked off. But I get, that sensitivity to some degree. I think it's a little severe, but I don't know his tweet history, so I don't know. I can't give a comprehensive judgment on that. And this guy Brendan Daly, who, I read his book. It's like one of those self-help books. Too many f-bombs for my taste, but he does seem to be like a sincere man of God, and he's a very loyal Trump supporter, and I like him. But at one point, his account was deactivated, and he had to start from scratch, and I don't really know why, because he's never posting anything racially divisive. But I realized basically in this country, well, this is where we're at, folks, is that you can't say anything critical of Islam. You Nothing critical in terms of looks or or make fun of the linguistic ability or limited linguistic abilities. That's not the purified Mother English version in relation to African Americans. Don't do that, and you can't really go too hard at women of color like Sarah Jeong, because apparently women of color have complete carte blanche when it comes to employing, white racist rhetoric of their own. Meanwhile, I've done Sarah Jeong, jokes on Twitter. I'm not kicked off yet. Again, I haven't done any, hacky, Asian, eye material, anything like that. I've just been, truthful, pointing out hypocrisy, really. But I mean, the bottom line is, if a lot of these comedians, need social media or talk show hosts, I mean, it is a form of income. They do make money because they have advertisers on it. So if that's unlimited, how do you make money? Well, you could be a professional speaker or a stand-up comedian. But in my case, that means, me being away from my 3 kids all the time. And don't get me wrong, it's unfinished business. I want to perform Montreal Comedy Festival. It's still a goal. But right now, that's not going to give me immediate money. I do feel that, but when it's all said and done, and when I was talking with this guy that had worked for like major labels like Universal Music or what have you, I said, in the end, I don't need social media. I've been using social media. He talks about using for a means to an end. And that's how I've been doing it. I mean, it's been like a giant open mic. And, that's been great for my self-esteem, knowing that I've been able to crank out, such quality material over such an extended stretch while looking after 3 kids and digging deep. So, I have no idea. I can be giving myself way too much credit. We are talking about a guy whose ego to the point where yesterday my computer wasn't working temporarily. It's all because my son had unplugged the power strip, and I thought the deep state had, done some sort of, technology coup where they basically zapped the complete brain power of my computer and short-circuited so I couldn't use it to this podcast. If that isn't the true extent or definition of narcissistic field egotism, I don't know what is. But the thing is, Alex Jones, he's banned, and from what I read on my Twitter feed, a lot of other people are too. But again, I don't know their feed, so I can't really comment. But where I'm at, folks, is moving forward in this podcast. Do I like showing off my writing? Yes. But this guy that I met who worked for Universal, he in essence said, you're shortchanging your talent by just doing a pure monologue and not talking to the audience. He feels that my true voice is not being revealed as much. And that the other way around, I was really more intent on proving the superiority of my ideas. But I've also realized here, I had a guy, and I said, listen, that's why I'm meeting you. I want to interview Do It All Dads. But then I have the bias, I'm not a stay-at-home dad, and I'm not a loser putt, so I don't want to become a loser through osmosis. I want nothing to do with you. So I got to contend with that. Also, Do It All Dads that are involved in their kids' lives they're not falling out from trees here. So I got that to contend with. And then I had this one guy, I read his book, I was super nice, gave him way more compliments than he deserved as far as the writing. But, I mean, the guy's a mensch. I mean, he's a police captain, leader of a SWAT team, $1 million influence, pretty sure it was the title of his book. Aaron Hawkins is his name. Then he listens to a couple of podcasts. He's like, well, my daughter thinks it's cool that I'm on the radio, and due to your nature of your content, I can't do your show anymore. Now, I listened to the podcast I sent him, and I realized that, okay, so I guess the expression unhuggable cunt blew up in my face there. But, for all I know, it could have been a lot of the political stuff too. But I would think that all men in blue, who turned their backs on de Blasio would, be in full support of our president. So don't really get, that dynamic. So moving forward, what we have to look forward to in the Doodle That Year podcast, I'm going to start doing self-interviews, and which I'm excited about. I'm going to have my kids interview me, and we're going to do some made-up, fictitious interviews. Because I've realized that some of my best stuff here in this podcast is having conversations with dead people, like Anne Frank and Mr. Short's wife. So we're going to get super creative with this podcast format, assuming Apple doesn't, kick us off. And we'll see where it takes us. But, I do agree with this guy, who I met for Universal, that I understand that, I do need to sacrifice, parts of my ego here for the greater good. And the greater good is, to make money and a living here at Entertainment Folks, for my 3 beautiful children. I want to give them everything and beyond. And, I can give all the life empowering advice I want, but I always tell them, money equals freedom, and freedom equals, power. So, I need to make that happen and be a living embodiment of what I preach. But my kids, I pray that all you folks out there, whether you have kids or not, have kids that can believe in their dad as much as mine do. They are steadfast. I just had skin cancer removed. I thank my lucky stars that they were there for me. And I love them so much. Now 2 of them are not here. They're at their grandparents' place in Delaware. And it was really scary. I don't know if scary is the right word, but very harrowing, going to the room and not feeling their presence there. I mean, you literally feel a complete life force. Like the sweetest, most beautiful angelic life force, completely extinguished. So it's pretty wild stuff, feeling that gaping hole. But, they're in my heart, and I can't wait to see them again. So that's where things stand. And thus far, I hope you guys appreciate the joke. I think a lot of times people like this guy who I met in the city, who's also discouraged me from doing the jokes that I'm doing, is that I think I'm also hitting a raw nerve, that I'm doing, jokes that, he's not too pleased with, because I'm going after the chosen Obama and Hillary and a lot of the resistors, and that's basically, a large portion of New York City where he lives on the Upper West Side. So I totally get it. But I just want to thank, I'm almost up to 800 downloads, people. So I just want to thank all of you for your belief in me, for showing interest in my world, showing interest in my thoughts. My dad says no one cares what you thought on politics. Well, for those of you who have been listening and downloading, I know you would disagree otherwise. But, I don't want that to be the focal point moving forward. I do want the focal point as a whole to be about family related issues, in the sense of what I'm doing to get the most out of my kids, and vice versa. Because what you give to children, you get back tenfold. And I want to magnify that. And I do like the idea of eventually this Do It All Dad Year podcast forming into a production powerhouse entity that my kids get involved with, because they're super creative clowns, and I would like to extend this time with them as much as humanly possible, because they really are superior company than most. This is the Do It All Dad Year podcast, dad-friendly entertainment for you and me, controlling our kids through comedy. Can't make our kids great again, and I'll talk to you guys soon.